Welcome, dear listeners, to a serene journey into a realm where reality and dreams intertwine. Tonight we explore a hidden valley, cradled by ancient mountains and guarded by mystical forests, where the eternal twilight casts a magical glow over all it touches. Here lives Althaea, a magnificent unicorn whose ethereal beauty and ancient wisdom protect this enchanted sanctuary. As you settle in and close your eyes, let the soothing rhythm of the story guide you into a deep, restful slumber. Imagine the delicate magic of the valley wrapping around you, inviting you to explore its secrets. Allow the gentle whispers of the trees and the shimmering presence of Althaea to lull you into a peaceful dream. Sweet dreams await in the heart of this mystical valley. In a realm beyond human sight, there was a valley cloaked in eternal twilight, cradled within the arms of jagged mountains and guarded by the ancient forests that surrounded it. This valley, known only in whispers, was said to exist in that fragile space where reality and dreams met. A sanctuary woven from silken shadows and kissed by the last rays of moonlight each night. In its heart lived a single unicorn, a creature of ethereal beauty and ancient purpose, known to the valley's residents as Althaea. Althaea was a being of mystery, her form delicate yet powerful, her silver mane trailing like the star's remnants from night's end. Her coat shimmered with the deep hues of a twilight sky, each step graceful, each breath measured. The valley was her haven, a place older than time itself, home to plants that thrummed with their own magic and whispered to each other in a language known only to the earth. Althaea was their keeper, their protector, and their guide, an eternal guardian who had lived countless lives within this hidden refuge. As dusk gave way to night, Althaea would stir, rising from the quiet glade where she rested. She moved through her valley, her steps leaving faint, silvery prints on the ground that faded with the morning light. The plants and flowers responded to her presence, their leaves shimmering with a gentle glow as she passed by, as if they too felt the weight of her unspoken promise. Her path was always the same, yet each night she moved as though she were tracing a new map, seeing new secrets within the familiar paths. Above her, the moon began to sink, casting its last beams over the valley. In these final moments of moonlight, the valley took on a strange, unearthly beauty. Shadows danced across the ground, weaving patterns with the last remnants of starlight, casting the plants and trees into a web of mystery. Althea's heart beat in time with the world around her, sensing every delicate shift in the earth's pulse, every silent message sent through the roots that connected her valley's flora in an ancient network of magic and memory. It was in this fading light that Althaea became aware of a disturbance, a faint ripple in the otherwise undisturbed silence. The shift was subtle, a note out of place in the valley's nocturnal symphony. But Althea's senses were sharp. Her eyes narrowed, her ears pricking, as she listened to the soft murmurs that traveled through the soil, carrying with them the message. A presence had entered the forest's edge. The valley itself seemed to tense, holding its breath as if waiting to see what would follow. Though the valley was hidden, its secrets well guarded by the fog-laden trees and tangled vines, Althaea knew that not all intrusions were unwelcome. There were souls, rare and pure, who stumbled into the valley not out of greed or ambition, but out of a longing they themselves could not understand. Althaea had encountered such travelers before, those whose hearts pulsed in harmony with the quiet magic of the land, who sought not to possess the valley's wonders, but simply to understand them. Still, Althaea did not allow herself the luxury of hope. This valley was her charge, and its safety her only priority. She took a step forward, her hooves silent on the soft earth, and began her journey to the valley's edge, moving like a shadow through the glimmering foliage. Her breath fogged in the cold night air, curling in tendrils that twisted like ghostly vines, blending with the mist that clung to the ground in wisps of lavender and silver. As she moved, the plants around her seemed to lean closer, their roots shifting beneath the soil, stretching toward her as if to offer their silent counsel. Althaea brushed past them, each touch leaving a glimmer of light in her wake, a fleeting connection that held 1,000 silent messages. She was a guardian, yes, but more than that, she was a confidant, a keeper of their secrets, and they trusted her with the silent burdens they carried in their tangled roots and radiant blooms. By the time Althaea reached the edge of the valley, the moon had dipped fully below the horizon, leaving only a faint trail of starlight overhead. She paused, her gaze sweeping across the misty woodland beyond, searching for any sign of the presence she had sensed. The forest beyond the valley was dense, tangled with vines and shadows, a place where paths twisted in on themselves, where even time seemed to lose its way. For now, all was still. The disturbance had faded, leaving only the faintest whisper of something distant, yet uncomfortably close. Althea's heart stirred with a quiet unease, but she held her ground, standing like a ghostly sentinel at the edge of her domain. The valley behind her thrummed with life, its magic a pulsing heartbeat that vibrated through the soil, mingling with her own. And as the first rays of dawn began to creep over the horizon, Althaea retreated into the shadows, her form melting back into the hidden depths of the valley. But her heart was still troubled, carrying with it the faint echo of that distant presence. A presence that felt like both a promise and a warning, a faint ripple in the valley's endless cycle of night and day. The forest surrounding the valley was no ordinary place. It was an ancient wood, steeped in secrets older than time itself. Trees with bark as dark as midnight loomed overhead, their branches reaching into the sky, like fingers trying to pluck stars from the heavens. Among them grew towering ferns, thick mosses and tangled vines, all draped in an endless veil of mist that lay heavy upon the ground. In the dense quiet, one could hear the faintest rustlings and murmurs, as though the trees themselves whispered of distant memories and hidden things. The unicorn Althaea knew these woods intimately. She had walked their shadowed paths for countless lifetimes, listening to their stories and learning the secrets hidden within their twisted roots and hollowed trunks. This night, however, felt different. The whispers seemed to be growing louder, more insistent, like the restless wind stirring the branches overhead. Something, or someone, was moving within the forest, and its presence rippled through the ancient network of roots, traveling to her ears in hushed warnings. The unicorn stilled, her ears tilting to catch the faint, elusive sounds. It was then that she noticed the faint scent, like crushed sage and rain-soaked earth. Intrigued yet cautious, Althaea trod deeper into the forest, her hoofbeats soundless, absorbed by the soft moss beneath her. The whispers grew louder, as though the trees were speaking directly to her, their language known only to those who had walked among them for centuries. Further ahead, a lone figure moved quietly through the fog, stepping carefully, almost reverently, as if mindful of the life teeming in every inch of this haunted wood. She was young, with eyes dark as twilight, and a spirit that resonated with the forest's magic. Her name was unknown to Althaea, but her presence bore the quiet mark of one who understood the earth's secrets. This was the herbalist, a traveler, drawn by tales she'd only half believed, until she found herself on the edge of this hidden world. She moved through the trees with practiced grace, her hands skimming across leaves and bark, as if seeking something just beyond her reach. The forest seemed to watch her, each step setting off a cascade of rustling whispers. Some warned her to turn back, to leave this place to its solitude. Others urged her forward, encouraging her to seek the valley that few had ever seen. The herbalist's heart pounded with a strange mixture of anticipation and dread, her mind flickering between wonder and wariness. She had heard of the Unicorn's Valley, tales spun in shadowy inns and fireside stories, yet none had captured the eerie beauty or the unsettling quiet of the path that now stretched before her. As she pressed forward, a strange feeling bloomed within her chest, a soft, thrumming pulse that resonated with the earth's rhythm. It was as if the valley itself had called her here, its magic entwining with her heart and guiding her steps. She knew she was close, though the fog around her thickened, cloaking everything in silvery mystery. And yet, her senses sharpened, guided by a pull she could neither see nor explain. The trees closed in around her, their shadows lengthening, casting strange, twisting shapes in the dim light. She began to wonder if she had wandered too far, If the stories had only been that, stories woven to entrap the minds of those foolish enough to seek them out. But just as doubt began to take root, she caught sight of a faint, ghostly shimmer through the mist. It flickered on the edge of her vision, soft as moonlight on water, and vanished the moment she tried to focus on it. Drawn by the glimmer, she continued, though a feeling of being watched pricked at her senses. The forest held its breath, and the fog thickened, swirling around her in wisps of lavender and silver. The shimmer appeared again, this time closer, weaving through the mist like a thread of light drawn through shadow. The herbalist paused, her heart leaping, and she realized she was not alone. The presence was there, just beyond sight. A guardian spirit whose existence was woven into the very essence of the valley she sought. Althaea had been watching her, silent as a wisp of starlight, her silver form blending into the fog. The unicorn studied the young woman, her gaze penetrating, her ancient eyes taking in the quiet reverence with which the herbalist moved. Though Althea's heart remained guarded, something softened within her, recognizing the earnest spirit that had drawn the girl to these woods. She saw no greed in her eyes, no hunger for the valley's secrets. Instead, there was only a simple, raw curiosity, a soul who had wandered far in search of something she herself might not yet understand. And so Althaea allowed herself to linger, to let the girl draw closer, watching as the herbalist knelt to examine a plant nestled among the roots. A soft smile played across the girl's face as she gently touched the silvery leaves, her fingers brushing as though she were handling something precious. Althaea felt the stirrings of trust, a rare feeling in her long solitary existence. But she did not reveal herself. Not yet. The forest remained quiet, its whispers fading back into the shadows as the herbalist moved on. She would soon find herself standing at the edge of the valley, on the cusp of a world only a few had seen. And as Althaea faded into the shadows, her heart stirred with a quiet promise. She would protect her valley, but perhaps, just this once, she would also let herself be seen. The forest grew denser as the herbalist ventured further, each step leading her deeper into a realm where sunlight seldom ventured and shadows ruled. The mist clung to her skin, curling in tendrils around her arms, as if the air itself sought to hold her back. Yet she pressed on, her pulse quickening, her breath shallow as anticipation danced in her chest. She could feel the valley's call, a pull that went beyond sound or sight, drawing her with an intensity she barely understood. Around her, the mist thickened, swallowing the trees and twisting the air into an otherworldly haze. It was a fog unlike any she had encountered, alive and shimmering, as if woven from moonlight and secrets. The forest had fallen silent now, its usual sounds of scurrying creatures and whispering leaves replaced by an expectant hush. Her senses heightened, catching the faintest hints of lavender and rain, an ethereal fragrance that lingered just beyond her reach. It was as if she were walking through a dream, one where each step took her closer to something both wondrous and forbidden. With a steadying breath, she moved through the mist, and soon the outline of a path began to reveal itself, a thin, winding trail barely visible beneath the cloak of fog. Her fingers brushed against the silvery leaves of plants unfamiliar to her, their surfaces soft yet sharp, leaving a slight tingle in her fingertips. She wondered if the stories she'd heard were true, that every plant within the valley held a unique magic, some granting visions, others capable of healing, and a rare few holding powers so great they had been hidden from the world. As she walked, the mist began to lift in parts, revealing glimpses of towering trees whose bark shimmered faintly under her touch, casting spectral light that illuminated her path. She became aware of a presence, something silent yet watchful, moving along with her, unseen yet undeniably there. Her heart raced, but she was unafraid, her curiosity stronger than her sense of caution. Her instincts whispered that whatever watched her was bound to this place, a creature as ancient and secretive as the valley itself. Then, through a break in the mist, she caught sight of something that made her heart stop. A single silver hoofprint embedded in the soft earth. She knelt, her fingers tracing its edges, marveling at its elegance and the quiet power it radiated. This was no ordinary animal. This was the mark of a unicorn, a creature so rare it existed only in legends passed down through generations. Her pulse quickened, and a spark of wonder lit her gaze. The stories had been true. She was close. As she rose, the mist swirled around her, parting as if by magic to reveal a faint, shimmering glow beyond. She took a step forward, and the fog receded further, unveiling a sight that took her breath away. Before her lay the entrance to the valley, a gateway of trees twisted together to form an arch, their leaves glittering like gemstones. The air was thick with enchantment, humming with life and mystery, and a trail of luminescent flowers marked the path ahead, their petals aglow with an inner light. The herbalist hesitated, feeling a reverence as deep as fear in her heart. She knew she was crossing into a realm that existed outside the bounds of her understanding, a place both beautiful and dangerous. Yet, something within her stirred, a deep yearning that urged her forward. She stepped through the archway, and at once the air seemed to shift, thickening with magic and promise. The valley unfolded before her in a landscape unlike any she had known. Plants of every color and texture blanketed the ground, their leaves shimmering with hues that shifted and glowed. Some flowers unfurled as she approached, revealing intricate patterns within their petals, while others closed, their colors darkening to shades of twilight. tall, slender trees with bark like polished silver dotted the valley, their branches stretching toward the sky, casting a soft, ethereal light over everything beneath them. The herbalist moved carefully, her gaze drifting from one strange plant to another, each more wondrous than the last. Here, at the valley's edge, she felt as though she had stepped into another world, a realm where time moved differently, where day and night mingled in a perpetual dusk. Her heart thudded with awe, her hands trembling as she touched the soft petals of a flower that glowed with a faint blue light. It was the valley's energy, a tangible pulse that seemed to resonate in harmony with her own heartbeat. Then, as she turned her gaze, she saw it. A figure half hidden in the mist, standing at the valley's center. Her breath caught as she took in the sight of the unicorn Althaea, her form bathed in a silver glow, her eyes as deep and mysterious as the night sky. The unicorn watched her with an intensity that pierced through her soul. A gaze that was both welcoming and warning, as if to say, "You are welcome here, but tread with care." The herbalist held her breath, overwhelmed by the creature's beauty, by the sheer power emanating from her presence. Althea's mane flowed like rivers of starlight, her coat shimmering with an otherworldly sheen. She was ancient and eternal, and yet there was something gentle in her gaze, a flicker of understanding. The herbalist felt as though she was standing at the edge of a vast ocean, aware of her own smallness, but feeling, perhaps for the first time, truly seen. And in that silent exchange, an unspoken pact was made. The herbalist knew she would not disturb the valley's delicate balance, that she would take only what was freely given, leaving the rest untouched. The mist swirled around them, binding their silent promise. And as the valley held its breath, Althaea turned, vanishing back into the fog, leaving the herbalist to explore her newfound world. The valley before the herbalist seemed to pulse with life, every leaf and petal thrumming with a magic that felt ancient and untouched. Here, the air itself was different, heavier, fragrant with an indescribable sweetness that made her feel both drowsy and exhilarated. Time seemed to hang in a delicate balance, caught between the slow rhythm of the earth and the flicker of something far older than she could comprehend. She moved forward, her hands trembling as they hovered over plants that shimmered like fragments of a forgotten dream. Each step brought her closer to the heart of the valley, and with it, the deeper mysteries it held. The flowers that lined her path were unlike anything she had ever seen. Their petals shifted colors as though catching light from stars, and some pulsed gently as if breathing. Others exuded faint glows, casting their light across the ground in intricate patterns that seemed to ripple and change as she passed. She bent low to examine a cluster of blooms that emitted a pale violet mist, inhaling their scent, which was cool and sweet. like the first breath of winter. The herbalist knew the legends of this place, the whispers told in dark corners by those who claimed to know more than they let on. They spoke of plants that could heal wounds with a single touch, herbs that could bring dreams to life, or flowers whose pollen held the power to stop time itself. But there were darker tales too, stories of those who had entered the valley and never returned, lost to its endless enchantments, their minds slipping away into the folds of the mist, their bodies claimed by the earth. Yet the valley felt neither hostile nor welcoming, simply existing in its own quiet way, as though it had no need for the concerns of outsiders. It was a world unto itself, a place where the boundary between the physical and the ethereal seemed to blur. The herbalist moved carefully, aware that every step might shift the delicate balance of this place. She could feel the weight of her own presence here, a stranger among secrets that had been kept for millennia. As she reached the valley's center, she came across a patch of plants that made her pause. They were tall, their stems slender and silver, with deep indigo blooms that seemed to hum with energy. The petals shimmered with an almost liquid light, as if they were made of captured stardust. The herbalist knelt, her breath catching in her throat as she carefully reached out to touch one of the flowers. The moment her fingers brushed its surface, a ripple of warmth passed through her, and for an instant she felt as though she could hear the song of the earth itself, a low, thrumming melody that resonated through her bones. The sensation faded as quickly as it had come, leaving her breathless and awed. She carefully gathered a single bloom, tucking it into her satchel with reverence, knowing this plant alone could change her craft forever. But she felt no greed, only gratitude for the gift, as though the valley had allowed her to take what she needed, no more. As she rose, she became aware of the valley's silence once more. A deep, unbroken quiet that felt alive, as if the land was listening to her, watching her. The mist that had cloaked the valley in its ethereal glow now seemed to shift and swirl in response to her movements, revealing glimpses of more wonders. Further ahead, she could see trees with leaves of gold and silver, their branches curving overhead to form a canopy that glimmered in the twilight. Beneath them, pools of water reflected the soft light, their surfaces still and glassy, as though hiding something just beneath. She wandered toward one of these pools, drawn by the way the light danced across it. The water was impossibly clear, and as she looked deeper, she saw not her reflection, but images that flickered just beneath the surface. They were fragments of places she did not know, strange landscapes where the sky bled into the sea, and cities of stone lay crumbled beneath the weight of time. It was as though the water held memories, glimpses of forgotten worlds, and stories long since faded from memory. The herbalist pulled back, overwhelmed by the sense that she was seeing things not meant for human eyes. The valley, it seemed, was a place that existed beyond the normal flow of time. A nexus of sorts where the past, present and future coexisted in fragile harmony. The thought filled her with a mixture of wonder and fear. How many souls had walked these paths before her? How many had been lost to the enchantment that hung so thick in the air? As she turned to continue her exploration, she saw movement out of the corner of her eye. An impossibly graceful shift in the mist. Althaea, the unicorn, had returned. The creature stepped into the clearing, her silver coat gleaming in the strange twilight, her eyes glowing with an ancient wisdom that made the herbalist's heart skip a beat. For a moment, their gazes locked, and in that instant, the herbalist felt something pass between them, a silent understanding, a wordless exchange that spoke of respect and trust. The unicorn moved closer, her steps light as the breeze, and dipped her head toward the herbalist. It was a gesture of acknowledgement, a quiet blessing from the guardian of this enchanted place. The herbalist bowed her head in return, her heart swelling with gratitude. She understood now that she had been granted more than just entry into this sacred valley. She had been given its trust, a fragile gift that few would ever know. And as the mist swirled around them once more, the herbalist knew her journey was far from over. There were still secrets waiting to be uncovered, hidden deep within the valley's shimmering heart. But for now, she was content to stand in the presence of such wonder, knowing that whatever came next, she would not walk this path alone. The herbalist felt the weight of the valley's magic pressing into her bones, lingering in her mind like a half-remembered dream as she made her way through the forest once more. The world around her seemed changed, sharper and somehow quieter, as if the trees, now familiar in their ancient silence, held their breath in her passing. Behind her, the valley receded into the mist, folding itself back into the hidden folds of twilight. She walked slowly, savoring her last moments in this enchanted place. The unicorn's presence, like a memory, etched in silver at the edges of her vision. The deeper she walked, the more the valley's magic clung to her, pulsing gently with each step. In her hand, the single blossom from the valley glowed faintly, its petals soft and otherworldly in the dim morning light. It was a gift, a piece of the valley's heart, given to her by its eternal guardian, a token of trust and understanding. She had ventured far, seeking only knowledge, and now she returned with a quiet sense of peace, her soul forever touched by what she had seen. Althaea, the unicorn, watched from the shadows as the herbalist took her final steps through the trees. The mist curled protectively around her, whispering secrets that only she could hear. She had known others before this herbalist, souls who had come and gone, drawn by the valley's enchantment. Yet, there was something different about this one. A silent, earnest reverence that had softened the lines of Althea's guarded heart. The herbalist had tread lightly, taking only what she needed, leaving the rest untouched. And in that simplicity, Althaea saw something rare, something timeless. As the herbalist slipped out of sight, Althaea let herself linger at the edge of the valley, her silver form blending seamlessly with the morning mist. The first rays of sunlight began to pierce through the trees, casting faint glimmers on the valley's plants, waking them from their nightly slumber. Althaea moved through her valley as she always had, her steps silent, her gaze sweeping across the landscape with the familiarity of 1,000 lifetimes. Each flower, each tree was a part of her, a piece of her spirit bound to the land. The valley itself seemed to stir, responding to her presence. The plants quivered softly in the morning breeze, their leaves rustling as if greeting an old friend. Althaea felt the pulse of magic in the earth beneath her hooves. A quiet song that had been hers to guard for centuries. She had never left this valley, nor did she wish to. Her heart was woven into its roots, her breath in the air that filled its glades. She was its last guardian, bound to it in a way that went beyond duty. She was part of its essence, its life, its endless mystery. The sky above lightened, and Althaea lifted her head, gazing at the horizon. The world outside the valley was changing, she knew. Whispers from the forest carried tales of distant lands filled with bustling cities and roads that cut through ancient woods. The valley's peace felt fragile against these tides, as though the world itself might someday break through its protective veil. Yet Althaea felt no fear. She was bound to the valley's magic, an ancient spell woven into her very being, a guardian meant to endure as long as the valley stood. She knew the herbalist would keep her silence, would nurture the valley's memory in her own heart, protecting its secrets from those who would seek to exploit its beauty. And in that quiet pact, the valley was safe. As the morning sun climbed higher, Althaea stepped further into the shadows, her form disappearing into the mist like a whisper lost to the wind. The valley around her settled, its plants growing still, their magic sinking back into the soil, hidden from the waking world. The mist thickened, wrapping the valley in a protective shroud, and the trees leaned closer, their branches knitting together to form a dense, impenetrable canopy. Time would pass, as it always had, and the valley would remain unseen, hidden away in its quiet mystery. Althaea would guard it, walking her familiar paths each night, watching over the flowers that bloomed in her wake, and waiting, always waiting. For she knew that the valley's enchantment, like all things of beauty and magic, was fragile, something worth guarding against the ever-encroaching world beyond. And so, the valley returned to its silence, a sanctuary of starlit flowers, silver trees, and whispered secrets, guarded by the last unicorn, whose watchful eyes held the weight of centuries. She would wait, her spirit as ageless as the valley's hidden roots, her presence a silent testament to its wonder. And in the heart of the forest, where time stood still, the valley would remain, unseen and untouched, forever bound to its last silent guardian.